Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome everyone to Smart Parking Qatar Virtual Business Platform. I'm Ahmed Kailani. I'm your host for today's webinar titled Smart Parking Management and Technologies Towards FIFA World Cup 2022. This is one of many virtual events that ACM is launching throughout the year in different sectors and different countries. If you want to know more details, if you want to know the titles that we'll be running soon, please visit our website acm-events.com and you will see all the details. Before we start, I would like to mention a few house rules and tell you exactly how this session will be running. The session will start with a 15 minutes presentation and following a 14 minutes panel discussion with our distinguished panelists and speakers. We will be having at the end 15 minutes for Q&A. If any of our guests would like to ask any of the questions, please, you can see the button at the bottom of the screen, the Q&A. You can direct your question to one of the speakers, or it can be generic, and then we'll be discussing exactly who will be answering. Bear in mind that the microphone and camera is limited only to our speakers and to moderator. If you have any concern, please, you can send a message directly to myself as the host of this session. I don't want to take more of your time. I would like to start by thanking Prime Park Services for sponsoring this session and introduce Mr. Chadi Rahi, Business Development Manager from Prime Park Services, to showcase the latest technologies in smart parking. I will pass it to Mr. Chadi. You can start your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed, for the introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being part of this virtual conference. Hopefully it will be successful and informative, especially it's tapping into a very hot topic nowadays in Qatar, which is smart parking. I would like to thank as well ACM Events for giving us this opportunity to share Prime Park Services vision and innovations contributing to this transformation in the parking industry in Qatar. I would start our presentation with a quick introduction about who we are, different services we're offering, and then provide a general overview about the smart parking, how a smart parking can be a complete ecosystem. We will deep dive into the system components and systems, starting from on-off street detection and payment, smart parking platform and application, smart EV charging, smart rotary parking, and definitely we have to thank our partners and technology partners for allowing us to provide this turnkey solution. We've been in the industry for the past 20 years. We started from Lebanon and then moved to have regional success all over the countries from KSA, UAE, Qatar, and Jordan. Our key success was sticking to our values from hard work, quality, integrity, and definitely innovation, which is positioning us in this virtual conference about innovation and smart parking. Our services can be divided into 4 subcategories, starting from consultancy, operations and management, system integrations, and financing. So we do believe in the smart parking technology, and we do believe that it is the future of parking, the future of city management. It is a necessity to be to be embedded within the smart city applications, and we do believe in return on investment for such development and innovations. As part of our consultancy, we provide the support for the professional consultants, for end users, to add the operational design enhancement coming from our experience in operations and how we can fine-tune with some tricks to provide a better design for an end user or user-friendly parking operations and parking facility, starting from the location of equipment, selection of equipment, traffic flow, signage, and other aspects to convert this car park into a peace of mind for the parking owner and into a pleasant experience for drivers and users. We provide the complete auditing and performance review, starting by historical and predictive data analysis to make sure that the parking owner is investing in the right place, is providing the right experience for users, and at the same time is doing a proper ROI on his investment. From the operational side, we do provide the qualified team to operate any kind of car park, starting from maintaining the equipment into providing the required manpower to properly manage the parking, to provide the proper customer care, and find a way and find the proper ways to generate revenue or to make the parking a successful and profitable business. Definitely, we cannot talk about smart parking without talking about smart valet parking. Valet parking is everywhere, on the streets, in malls, in commercial centers, even in government entities. We do care about people handing over their cars to valet drivers, and VIP people handing over their cars to valet drivers. So introducing the smart technology in valet parking is a necessity, and it is a part of the complete ecosystem of a smart parking. Now, if we take an overview about how a city can be, or how a smart parking infrastructure can be implemented in a city, we can identify several main elements, starting from on-street technology, from sensing to network infrastructure and payment, moving to other mobile application for guidance, control, and law enforcement, in addition to additional or add-on services to transform a city or a parking into a smart parking, which are EV chargers, off-street parking, and then the vertical parking solutions. So through our presentation, we'll go into very high-level discussion about each detection. When it comes to on-street detection, the major part is actually on-street parking, the major part is detection. We have to rely on an accurate system to make sure that the data we're acquiring about the smart parking is accurate data, about the parking occupancy and parking operations is accurate data. So we have to rely on accurate sensor. Our sensors are embedded in the ground, compatible with any kind of design, which keep us free of in terms of installation, give us big flexibility in terms of installation. And definitely it is battery powered sensors with a different type of connectivity. It is a narrowband IoT or other type of gateway connectivity. Going back to, this is talking about U-spot detection, so a single spot detection sensor. And then we go to other kind of detection, which is the flow counting for off-street car parks. The flow counting will give us a better view about the occupancy level and the number of cars entering or exiting any parking, or even it can help us into providing sub-zoning guidance when it comes to off-street grade level parkings. So where the investment in spot detection is really high, we always consider working on flow counting per zone to provide a certain high-level guidance for visitors or for drivers inside a large surface parking lot. The flow counting sensors allows us as well to do some kind of traffic counting. So it can be installed at the entrance and exit of any car park, but for highway monitoring and main road monitoring. And in addition to the number of cars, it gives us several parameters or insightful information about occupancy, time between vehicles, speed, type of vehicles, and traffic density. Going back to the overview, so let's talk about what kind of networking or network infrastructure we need. So definitely we have our own gateway to connect these wireless sensors and to allow an easy deployment. And by the way, once the sensor is installed, it can be remotely configured and calibrated, so no need for any intervention. This is very essential when it comes to public work and work on street. We don't need any physical access to the sensors. Going back to this overview, let's tap into what kind of payment method we have. We have the physical traditional payment, which is park meters. Some people still evaluate or find having a park meter with physical payment method is essential. However, our park meters are autonomous, relying on solar energy and Wi-Fi or wireless connectivity. It's either through Wi-Fi or 3G, 4G connectivity. They can serve as city information platform, and they can serve as Wi-Fi hotspot as well to provide additional details or additional insightful city infrastructure. Going to the mobile application, as we can identify, we have several mobile applications. One mobile application for drivers, where we can allow each driver to download the mobile application for all the services related to parking. Starting, he will create his own profile, including all his cars, and then he can customize his experience, and he can define or select the area where he's going, find the vacant parking spot. It's either on street or off street, get guided to the vacant parking spot, understand the traffic in this area, understand the tariff structure in this area, do some kind of pre-booking, and then once he's there, he can define his parking session, pay automatically, and then if it's a valet parking services are available over there, then he can definitely benefit from smart valet parking service, where he can check in, the driver will automatically pick up his car, and then he can retrieve his car with a minimal waiting time for pickup. For the parking control app, definitely there is an app for wardens, for law enforcement basically, where we can have and monitor all the illegal parking happening, issue certain fines, and then communicate directly with the smart platforms. Moving to the UAdmin platform, where we are connecting all the parking activities happening into a unified platform. We are connecting the on-street, off-street parking spot, the park meters, and all the data we're acquiring from these parking elements into a unified platform. And then from this platform, we can generate multiple reports, multiple insights, and definitely we can integrate with third-party law enforcement and get the complete platform embedded into a wider smart city platform to provide a wide smart city experience, where the parking is an essential element, but it has to be added or to be a part of other systems connecting and providing insightful data for the smart city platform. I'm moving a bit fast for the sake of time. So moving to the EV charging capacity, EV charging solutions. So we have a complete solution and a range of smart EV chargers. But why it is smart EV chargers? Because of the smart infrastructure behind it. So we can do some kind of dynamic load balancing, allowing any parking owner to manage properly his load with settings limits for his load, and then the load balancing can distribute the load. It can be automatically integrated with eco-friendly solar integration, and then through one mobile application, you can again monitor and manage your EV chargers as a car park owner, or as a user, you can find the closest EV charging station, go and pay your charging session. And finally, let's talk about rotary smart parking, allowing to converting small and crowded parkings into more spacious with higher capacity parking, especially when it comes to special events. So let's say for the FIFA 2022, how is a rotary parking or vertical parking serving the FIFA 2022? It's by allowing a temporary deployment for such systems and multiplying the capacity of every parking minimum or maximum by 8 times. So it's easier for next to the stadium or next to the hotspot or next to the metro station as part of the Park and Ride project within Qatar. And finally, I would like to share the list of our technology partners, which are Urbiotica, Mayfar, Urbiotica, AVBox, Quercus, and many others, who are our technology partner providing the raw technology. And we as Prime Park, we are making sure to integrate all in these technology and developing and customizing these platforms and these technologies to meet the Qatari market standards, regulations, data privacy, and make sure we are providing a turnkey job from system supply, apply, and then after sales support. Thank you everyone for your attendance, and I hope it was insightful as expected. Ahmad?
Thank you, Shadi. Thank you so much. Definitely, it was really helpful, and many people got to know a little bit more details about smart parking, because usually we only know as a general idea, and there are so many details inside that people actually don't know about. We are going to take as an opportunity now that to discuss further details and discuss the challenges and the opportunities and how we can provide a solution to a specific problem by implementing those kind of technologies within our project, or it can be specifically, as the title is saying, about around big events like the FIFA World Cup 2022. So I'm going to move now to the panel discussion and introduce all the speakers. We have you, definitely Mr. Shadi Rahi, Business Development Manager from Prime Park Services. We have Mr. Marc Boher Genis, Chief Commercial Officer and Board Member of Urbiotica. We have Mr. Moen Al-Azimi, Executive Director from Arab Engineering Bureau. We have Mr. Zulfiqar Ali, former President of the British Parking Association and member of the Board of Directors. He's a parking professional and expert in the field. And as usual, we always have Mr. Phillip Higgins, our star and moderator of the session. I will pass it to Mr. Phillip. I will just remind everyone before we start, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate and send it to us by the bottom line Q&A. Thank you so much. I will pass it to Phillip. Thank you.
Ahmed, thank you for that introduction, and it's so great to have you guys with us today. I must admit, I don't know very much about smart parking, and until today, valet parking at the hotel was probably the smartest thing that I could ever find. But I really enjoy understanding about new technologies, because technology is sweeping the world. We're seeing increased technological use in the construction sector and in hospitality sector, even in our own homes. While we're having this webinar, I'm actually cooking my dinner on an outdoor smoker. And right now I can tell you that the temperature of that smoker is 128 degrees. That's technology, that's smart. And if we can apply similar technologies to improve the way we park our cars, then I think that's a great thing. Mr. Chadi, thanks so much for your presentation. You did outline a lot of that, the new technologies that we're seeing. You had my support and attention right up until when you started talking about law enforcement apps and how your technologies will help law enforcement give me more fines. I don't like being fined for parking. Maybe I should just not overstay my welcome. But if you guys can point me in the right direction to some technology that's going to help me find my car when I park it at Emirates Mall and help me remember which floor I'm on, that would be really smart. And so we do look forward to your contributions today. Hey, I'd like to stay with Mr. Chadi, because we are specifically talking about smart parking technology and the uptake in preparation for the FIFA World Cup. And I'm very curious to understand, Chadi, what is Qatar's uptake for smart technology today? We're not far away from the World Cup. Is there very smart technologies being employed in that region?
Well, actually, it is a very hot topic right now in Qatar. Government agencies are investing heavily into smart parking technologies. They are aware about the kind of unstructured parking situation that we currently have and what is the expected load and traffic we're expecting for 2022. And if we don't manage to properly organize the parking activities and parking industry, it will create a very high traffic and create a big problem for in city. So there are many projects led by government agencies who are looking how to organize the parking, how to introduce technology for on-street first, to organize all the on-street areas and hot areas, high traffic areas, organize the on-street guidance first, to guide the people to the vacant parking spot, and to organize the payment, which is gonna become more public, the payment for parking, and then how to integrate the on-street with the off-street, and give a like unified user experience for drivers to park wherever they go, or even to guide the drivers to the closest parking spot.
You mentioned expectations for increased load during that FIFA time. Is there a specific number? Are we expecting to see twice as many cars on the road, significantly more parking? Is there a number associated to these forecasts?
Yeah, actually, I prefer to leave the numbers, accurate numbers about projections for like government agencies who has like really accurate figures about this. But what I can tell you is Smart is moving toward 2030 vision for innovation and for transforming Qatar into smart nation. And part of this smart transformation is smart transformation in parking. And even before having this 2022 rush and traffic, we are currently facing certain crowded areas. So, and already there are a lot of plans and projects in place to arrange or to organize these parking activities within these areas. So it is there. Prior to 2022, we are working on solving this problem, and by 2022, hopefully, we will all set and ready for welcome the double or 3 times the parking, so the number of cars heading to Doha City and other neighborhoods.
Thank you. Marc, what's your job? What do you do?
Well, we at Urbiotica, we develop smart parking solutions based on IoT sensors systems. Okay? We are able to support our local partners like Prime Parking with technology to improve the management of parking. So more concretely, what we are seeing in parking is a trend to, as you were showing just before, being able to connect the parking infrastructures to the cloud, and thanks to that, being able to deliver new services. So we can imagine having real-time information about the parking availability, both on and off street. Okay, so it's what we can provide. So having in your smartphone the capacity of knowing where there are more parking vacancy and being able to be routed easily to them. And also, this is one hot topic, but also in certain countries, especially in Europe now, there is a big focus on managing a specific type of parking spots. Like, going inside the big cities in Europe, it's more and more forbidden or charged, like in London, and they reserve the scarce resource that is the space on the cities to certain type of parking, like parking for handicapped people, parking for loading and unloading. So with the e-commerce, we are seeing a boom on the deliveries too. So managing this type of parking, let's say, infrastructures, thanks to having IoT sensors that deliver real-time information, and this combined always with some apps, okay, allowing to just allow the parking for people that it's allowed to do that, or this type of things. Okay, so
having technology, Marc, having technology is one thing, but implementing the technology is another. I guess
absolutely.
There are many companies that are developing their own technologies, and sometimes it's like a kid in a candy store. We're surrounded by the candy. We don't know which one to pick, you know. How's the implementation of these new technology and new strategies are being applied?
This is very, very good question, and it's very important that technology is just a tool, a candy, as you were saying, and you have to use it depending on your city needs. Okay, it's not the same thing managing parking in a small city in Europe than a big city in Middle East. Okay? The use case, the needs are completely different. So you need to adapt and see which are your challenges, okay, in terms of what is your problem, what is your priority in terms of city manager, and based on that, deciding what you need to implement. Okay. As I was saying at the beginning of the smart parking, 10 years ago, the companies building these sensors, ourselves included, the projection was, oh, in the world there are 10,000 or 10 millions of parking spots, so we can sell a sensor for each parking spot, and this doesn't make sense. Okay? It makes sense to use the sensors where we bring some added value, so just using it when it's really useful for the citizens. Okay, so you need to deploy the right technology to solve your problems. So we have very different use cases, as I was mentioning before. So the main trends we are seeing is in big cities, the park and ride facilities, parking outside the big cities, and then being able to commute. So being able to let's say to give information about this, the parking location, the parking availability, the seamless payment. So you pay for the parking at the same time you take your ticket for the public transport. So this is a very hot topic. We are seeing a lot of parking management of a specific type of parking spots, like I was saying before, loading zones. It's for the delivery. It's very common, and this is a lot in Europe. But then when we look at some emerging countries, we see it very differently. So we see that in emerging countries, a lot of them are starting to manage the parking. Okay, there are no technologies today. There is nearly no rules. So when they implement the way they manage the parking, they think it differently. They are not used to deploy parking meters. They don't, so they can start thinking in let's say, a digital payment for starting, and all, let's say, a digital management of the parking. Okay, and in those cases, sometimes the approach is completely different, and it's something that we are seeing in the market in Qatar. So going with IoT technology, delivering a lot of information to the user, making it very easy to pay, and it's completely different approach depending on the situation you are starting. So it's interesting to see the difference between regions.
Most technologies, when they're introduced, they provide us with an increased efficiency, so we can justify the cost with increased reward or return. But when it comes to parking, we just have simple cost. And so my question is, Mr. Ali, could you jump in here? Who pays for technology like this? How is the government or the developer recover the costs for smart parking to make parking easier for us?
Thank you very much, Philip. Very good questions. And clearly, ultimately, the benefit is to improve efficiency, make it easy for people like you to understand smart parking better. If you leave your home and you want to get somewhere, you want to know how quickly, when am I going to get there? Where can I go straight to the parking? And can my car be parked in the right places, etc. So that technology is available, but it needs to be properly used. I think the issue is making sure that it's connected well and people understand it. And frankly, places like London, we have gone for emission-based charges now. We're deterring people to use the cars. We call ultra-low emission zones in central London. Every authority is actually charging people based on the engine size of their car. And in terms of how the funding is going, frankly speaking, parking has been historically seen as a cash cow in many countries. Certainly in the United Kingdom, in England, we have authorities who are making good money, good return from parking. And that is even without intervention of technology. And the technology, when it is introduced properly and it works properly, and we can justify that it is actually giving more efficiencies, could save a lot of time. Just look environmentally, for example, in various cities in London, in UK and Europe, people are spending 20 minutes going around circulating the gyratories to find a parking space. Look at the cost of petrol, look at the emissions, the environmental damage that's causing, and the time and stress that's causing. And that is being saved by the proper use of technology. And that is, it may be indirect saving, but ultimately it does help to contribute to your satisfaction level, etc. But the issue is really, in Middle Eastern contracts, it's a different culture, it's a different environment. People, I went to Doha last time, a couple of years back, and I could hardly see any car, any person walking on the street. So I asked some people, I said, why is it we got such a lovely wide footways, but nobody's actually walking on them? And they said, actually, people are used to a car culture here, and they go to the mall, you got underground car parking, etc. And so it's convenience. But I think ultimately it boils down, Philip, to having an integrated transport strategy. Parking cannot work on its own. It has to be part of a overhauling strategy that looks at the transport, the cars. In fact, we encourage cycling now. We got cycle lanes, cycle tracks now across major roads. But it's a mindset that we need to change. But clearly, environment is a factor in that region. Obviously, hot climate. You're not going to encourage people to cycle at midday. But we do need good public transport infrastructure. And with respect to FIFA, clearly they are looking at improving the infrastructures and the parking provision. And it's good to hear Chad saying that the rotary parking will increase capacity by 8 times. But I think the fundamental question is, I hope that there is a model that has been developed based on experience in other countries on FIFA or other Olympic and world activities to look at what will be the demand and then see how we're going to meet that. But the primary focus really needs to be on public transport infrastructure. If we make that accessible, if we make that cheap, if we make it convenient and attractive for people to use, then there will be a better chance of encouraging people to do this model shift, whereby they will move from the car too. But it has to be incentivized. And I hope that part of the infrastructure that's being developed for FIFA, there are such incentives which will encourage ordinary people to think, is it me worth going stuck in the car and then actually spending half an hour in traffic jam? One of the things we did in London, for example, when the Olympic was here in 2012, which was right next to me, only a mile away from here, we had an integrated traffic signal system which work across the whole of London as well as the boundaries beyond it, Essex and other counties. So we managed and controlled the traffic flow into London in such a way you wouldn't even believe that there was an Olympic taking place right next to me. The traffic flow seemed less, but only because it was managed effectively. It was a platoon effect. We're holding people behind further down the line, allowing them in platoons to come into London. But so it's less noticeable and you're actually managing it better. So I hope, Chadi, that, I'm sure there is something that's being looked at to look at holistically across the board to make sure that all government infrastructure is actually working around it collectively in a holistic manner to deliver the outcome that you're expecting, to make sure that people come in, enjoy the entertainment, enjoy the matches, and can conveniently go back to their homes without thinking, oh God, I spent 3 hours and wasted my time, and forget about the event itself. I hope that makes a bit of sense.
Yeah, very much so. Well, I live in the UAE, and I take for granted the low cost for parking. And quite often you go to a shopping mall, you can park for free. You have free valet parking at hotels. When I go back to Australia, it's a rude shock. I mean, I cannot believe how much it costs just to park my car on the street, for goodness sake, My question is this something we're going to see in Qatar? Are we going to see a skyrocket in parking rates to cover some of these new technologies that are being developed there? Does anyone have a comment? This is a question not prepared. I'm just I'm spitballing here. It's a good question. I want to know the answer to this question.
I'll take the question, Phillip. Yeah.
Moen, do you have an answer for this?
Yes, I do have an answer for this. And before I come on to this particular question exactly, I would like to touch upon a few things which we discussed on this panel. Question what you started with is what's happening in Qatar as of date. So I think being a parking designer present in Qatar, to be unfair if I don't mention what's going on in the market. Phillip, this is happening over here in terms of the parking thing, and the most happening thing which I'm seeing nowadays, or the most queries which I'm getting nowadays as parking consultants or the transport consultants, is like the mall owners and where the big public parking guys, they're asking for EV charging stations, like EV charging points. So this as part of smart parking is started evident or started looking done. Now, if you talk about the parking makeover in general, yes, there is one thing which is FIFA. And while at FIFA in temporary operational wise, there are many things which are planned, which I'll not talk about for a lot of time. But in general, like there are a couple of parking projects which are now coming in Qatar, which is as part of PPP. Now, this is public-private partnership projects. And as part of public-private partnership projects in Qatar, there are a whole lot of on-street parking in West Bay and Central Doha. If I remember the figures correctly, there are almost, I think, 3,500 on-street car parks and around probably around 8,000, 10,000 capacity of off-street car parks is being tendered as by Ishgal as PPP space. And all these, for all these parkings, there's a smart element attached to it. So in terms of happening in Qatar, there's a lot potential, a lot more happening. Now, coming on to the question actually. That,
yes, are we going to pay more for parking in Qatar? That's the simple question.
Yeah, so this question is like, you would be very glad to know that as of date, the parking in Qatar is free. So on street, I'm talking about, not the off street. Yes, off street, the users have like, so they, you go. So very likely, maybe in a couple of days' time, you will see that that the parking meters will be installed. And there was a very interesting story, Phillip, I'll tell you, which I was sitting with someone in the government, and long back actually in Qatar, they've installed the parking meters. So the guy, he was, I'll not disclose who it is, but then he said that the Emir, basically the Baba Emir, he was going on the road, and he asked his, like the people with him that, what is this thing? So people told him that, oh, these are parking meters. He said, oh, we're gonna charge people for parking. Oh, take it off. So as of until date, we have seen that the parking in Qatar is free. But I think during the new parking master plan, which has been floated by the ministry, now we'll see that the parking as a part of parking management and as part of overall traffic management, there will be on-street parking meters. There will be on-street parking thing, and I don't know how costly or how cheap it would be, but there will be, the parking will be paid.
There will be some charge. What about throughout the world, Ali? Are we seeing, I mean, governments have suffered during COVID-19, and this has been an economic disaster for us since 2020. Is there considerations that we will see governments increase parking fees just to help contribute to their economies?
Well, funny you should ask that question, Philip, but in Western society, particularly in UK, there is an outcry that the parking is actually, as I said earlier, is used to make money. But it costs a lot of money. Clearly, our technology intervention costs a lot of money. But the biggest issue is that it's actually for public convenience. And in contrast to UAE and Qatar and other Middle Eastern countries, parking in England is decriminalized. So it is not a central government responsibility. It's actually responsibility down to local authorities. And each local authority is responsible for its own area, setting up its own tariff. And going back to Moen's point, you cannot have a parking strategy or transport strategy unless you manage an interface between on-street and off-street. If you're going to have an on-street parking which is free, then clearly nobody's going to jump into the car park and pay the money. So, and you also got a mix of private car parks, which are publicly owned, privately owned, managed, not regulated, etc., etc. So what we need is a comprehensive set of regulations covering on-street parking. Yes, you do allow business parking. Yes, you allow residential parking. You make some provision for people who want to come and load and unload and do some short-term shopping. So you've got different strategies for different people, but you got to manage it collectively to make sure that there is an integrated approach, because otherwise you can end up in a kiosk. If you increase the tariff in car parks, people will basically fill up your streets. And if you don't have charges on the street, then clearly where are people going to go? So we do need a balance to make sure that we meet the needs of everybody, the businesses, the tourists, etc., and the residents. But at the same time, I think one area that we often forget is the environmental cost. And the issue now, for example, going back to your question about the parking tariffs, one of the issues we face now is, in view of the impact of the pandemic and the reality that we all face, that people are not going back to their workplaces, etc., there has already been a reduction in parking demand. So we do have an increased capacity. So in this side of the world, we're now looking at how best we can better utilize existing parking infrastructure to meet other service areas. So look at an integrated approach. So the dynamics is slightly changing. It's no longer a demand versus capacity, etc. But demand is increasing. Let's make more money out of it. But how do we actually rationalize the facilities and opportunities that we have to maximize potential, to encourage parking, as well as obviously utilize those facilities for other services?
Well, I'm not sure about Qatar, but I can assure you that somebody in Australia is making a lot of money from parking. The fees are so high. But hey,
Phillip,
what about
would you allow me
specific
please to
Qatar?
jump in here just to,
Yes, please go ahead. While you're talking, I was also going to ask you, why don't you share with us some of the specific parking projects that you've worked on in Qatar?
So before answering this question, actually, based on what Mr. Ali and Mr. Moen was mentioning before, actually, there is a certain study, and the government agency, jointly with international consultants, have been working for the past 2 years on developing a QPMP, Qatar Parking Master Plan, where a lot of people were involved from the government sector and private sector, and in order to present the best parking plan and a master plan for Qatar. And since Moen talked about the Ashghal PPP project that is happening and covering West Bay area and Doha Corniche, we're aware about another project happening as part of TASMO program, which is a program launched by the MOTC as well, aiming to transform Qatar into a smart nation in several verticals. And one of them is transportation. So it is happening. The master planning and this overall or master transportation plan is happening, is taking place. And a part of it is the smart parking under TASMO, which Prime Park is proudly part of it. And we're deploying as well another project for on-street and off-street sensors. We're talking about like around integration with 20 car parks and off-street car parks and around 3,000 sensors. And this is just a pilot phase, and we're expecting to expand it to cover all Qatar. So there are several projects those are the projects I was referring to initially. Several government agencies are working on, according to their jurisdiction, on developing and into enhancing the parking activities in their premises or in areas under their jurisdiction. And definitely, everything is, they are looking to have all these projects integrated somewhere, somehow, to provide a unified user experience and to give the city management a complete overview about the parking activities and how it can serve the general transport plan for Qatar.
So the FIFA World Cup next year is different to that of an Olympic Games, as an example. Olympic Games, you typically have 1 or 2 major stadiums where you have a major congestion with parking and transportation. Throughout all of Qatar, there will be multiple stadiums, so therefore multiple parking strategies. Mr. Moen, you're a consultant, designer of parking. Is this any different to having a one stadium facility when you have multiple stadiums you have to accommodate in parking?
If I get your question correctly, Phillip, you're asking about the parking facilities of the stadium? Sorry, yes. Actually, yes. I had some problem with my internet connection.
I understand, no problem. I was saying we have multiple stadiums all throughout the Qatar region, all throughout the city. And so we have demand in all areas of the city at similar times. Is this more complex than what you would have during an Olympic Games?
Yes. Basically, as you know, that Qatar, the geographical area of Qatar is not that big, and the stadiums are as close to 10 kilometers apart. And in a regular day, there would be 2 matches. So so the stadiums and the parking demand would certainly be quite high. But in terms of planning the parking and planning the arrivals, I think it has been a lot has been done actually, and there are a couple of at venue parkings which are basically reserved for the different user groups of the stadium: hospitality, media, IT, government officials, and all these things. And the majority of parking, like in case of a couple of stadiums, like a match happening in two stadiums, they're close to each other. They're common. There are various facilities planned on the park and ride nodes and on the off-street nodes, basically, which will which will be used as a parking lots, and then the spectators will be transported using different type of buses. So this is what in short the overall plan is for the parking of various stadiums.
I don't know if we have any guests joining us today from outside of the Middle East region, but there's one thing that I have always found just amazing in this country is that when a football team wins, after the game, there is a long procession of cars just celebrating. I mean, there was a time I was in Oman. It was a memorable time for me just to be involved, to be a part of it. And I mean, is there consideration for this in Qatar? Have you got special routes for procession or parking plans for this? Has this been considered in some of your planning?
Well, actually, in the game planning, which is almost like follows the FIFA guidelines, the FIFA World design guidelines. But then, as you see that, like you rightly said, that these processions are part of it, and I hope that while the games are on, these processions will happen not during the influence time of the matches, but might happen during the off time. But then the usual planning of the game lanes and specific things, these are done. But I'm aware if there's something planned for the president. But then yes, there are certain areas planned which will be like there are hospitality tents, there are celebration areas, there are various spots identified for the spectators coming from different parts of the world, which they can from the different team, the different supporters basically can organize and have gatherings there. But not from possession.
Yeah. Ali, you might not understand, being in the UK, you might not understand what we're talking about here. It's sort of like after the FIFA Cup, you know, in the UK, you might see a mob of Manchester supporters walking down the street. Well, we just simply do it in cars here. We just, I mean, you get the whole mob, but everyone's in their own car.
And the team will be on the bus. The team will be on the bus, on top of the bus on the roof. So that you can see.
I mean, I hope we don't lose that. I hope we don't lose that same spirit just because it's FIFA in Qatar. It should be an exciting time. Fantastic.
Well, it's a sense of enjoyment, isn't it? Clearly, here people go to the pubs afterward if they win, or end up having a fight between the opposing team. But
no, we can't do the pubs here.
As long as they don't smash cars into each other, then that's fine.
No,
guys, thank you so much for joining us. We're running out of time, and we do want to go to see if there's some questions from the audience. And if you do have a question for our panel, please just send it over to Ahmed in the Q&A tab there on the platform. But I really appreciate you guys joining us today. Sorry we didn't get through all of your questions, but I think we covered the bases. And it's wonderful to see new technologies being implemented into our lifestyle. Quite often we overlook that parking is one of those lifestyle experiences. I hope with your help, I will find my car more easily next time I go to Dubai Mall, but really appreciate your input today. Thank you very much. Ahmed?
Thank you, Mr. Phillip. Yes, we received some questions that are mainly kind of directed to Mr. Chadi, we can say, about like question related to the technologies and services that you are kind of providing. So the first question comes is like, how long it takes to implement this smart parking system in certain areas? And also how much area is actually taken care of, like how many kilometers square or like meters squared of implementing specific smart parking area technologies?
Well, thank you for the question. Actually, it all depends on how ready is the city infrastructure. Because the beautiful of our technology, the beauty of it is the sensor by itself, which can be just like have to do some coring on the ground and just insert the sensor. It's completely sealed, and it's up and running. So, and if the city is equipped with narrowband IoT infrastructure or a LoRaWAN network infrastructure, then our sensors are ready to be automatically connected. All what we need is just to do the coring of 10 centimeters, just install the sensors, and it's up and running for 5 years plus, even more, depending on the operating time and depending on the conditions and the number of rotations per day. When it comes to deploying the network infrastructure, our gateways are equipped as well, are very easily to install. It's like 30-centimeter gateway. It can be installed on any lighting pole, and it can be powered from the lighting pole itself or any solar panels. So you can have your own wireless infrastructure ready. It's not Wi-Fi, because I guess there is another question about Wi-Fi. It's not Wi-Fi. It's either either IoT connectivity through LoRaWAN or narrowband, or either like through patent frequency through our own gateways and repeaters. So it can be easily deployed. I prefer not to get into specific time, but it's just coring and doing the sensor and do some resin installation to make sure the sensor is properly installed.
Perfect, perfect. The second question is actually related to an existing parking, like building, or it can be a parking within a hotel or a mall or anything, an existing one. So how much approximately will cost if someone would like to turn a normal parking to a smart parking?
Okay, so after what we described in this
Average
presentation,
price. So
the word
can
smart
know.
parking is very, very, very wide now. What kind of smart parking? But anyway, if you have existing parking management and guidance systems, it's all about a platform-to-platform integration. Our platform is flexible enough, and it was structured in a way to integrate with third-party systems easily through API. So you don't have to change any of the existing parking management or parking guidance systems. It's only about software or platform-to-platform integration, and then we can start getting the data insight from the existing systems, and we can push certain data according to the manufacturer or the vendor we're integrating with. So this is when it comes to existing off-street. When it comes to building or converting a parking into smart parking, this actually involves a lot of elements according to the number of entries and exit, a number of floors if it's a multi-story, the way we are considering the payment, if we need to keep like the traditional physical payment stations, or we rely only on mobile application and digital payment. So it's a bit a hard to answer question, but for the integration part, definitely it is an easy part to do. And I guess Marc can just share if you have any other information about this part.
No, it's the right point. So depending on what you want to implement, the cost could be very different. Also, I make always an example is the BMS, the displays you can have on the street to give information to the users, not just apps, but also some digital signs. So digital signs could be from 1,000 euros to tens of thousands of euros, depending on the complexity on what you want to show. So its price is very variable. And regarding integration, yes, absolutely. What we propose and what we use is an open platform, allowing to receive data from other systems, could be other sensors, could be other parking management systems, and also to share all the data we collect with third-party systems. So as you were mentioning, and all the people were mentioning, so mobility, parking is part of the mobility, part of the smart city strategies, and the data need to be shared on both sides. So it's very important to make it easy to ensure the integration.
Definitely. I'm not a parking expert, but throughout the years, like running the events on smart parking topics, we noticed, and the main topic and the main thing is that no matter how much money you're actually going to pay to install and to make your parking as smart as possible, but you will have a high return of investment because you are generating revenue from the parking, better management, and make sure that actually using all the facility itself in the best way possible. I don't know, on those 2 points, Mr. Moen and Mr. Zulfiqar, is there anything you want to add? For example, on the first 2 questions, is there anything from your side before we move to the other ones?
I have actually, thanks, Ahmad. I have given a written response to the question one. Basically, it depends on the area that you're looking at, the kind of system you choose, and then what complexities you have in your area in terms of implementation. For example, in UK, we have to go through a pretty rigid regulatory framework. We have to go through an outline consultation, a formal consultation, get people's feedback, etc. Look at if other people would like us to implement or not, then make a decision. Whereas I suppose in your region is slightly different. You want to do something, you can get on with things and implement them quicker than here. But it really depends on the size of area and the type of system you choose and what you're trying to achieve. Is revenue maximization is the only option, or are you looking to control? I mean, I think, as we said earlier, you need to look at the rate of return, the cost and benefit analysis of it. Is it worth us doing it? And you need to have this area which is big enough to make sure that you do not have an impact on adjoining areas. Otherwise, all you're going to do is shift the problem from one area to another. So tomorrow you will have another similar scheme in another area because people will be complaining in that area. This is exactly how things work in terms of parking management. So it needs to be thought through quite sensitively, properly. Need good data to make sure what the problems are, what the issues are, when is the problem, and simply tackle it, head on to deal with the issue rather than simply moving into another area. I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. So, Moen, is there anything from your side, or we can move to the next questions?
We can move to the next question.
Perfect. There is one question that is, if we have already existing parking management system in an existing off-street parking, like underground parking, for instance, how this smart parking system can be integrated to interface with an existing system to show the overall picture or to manage both on the street or off-street parking slot holistically? I don't know if you understood exactly the question.
Yeah, we do, and we kind of answered this question in this while answering the previous question. So it's just a platform to platform integration. So we can integrate with such systems with no, you don't need to replace any existing equipment. So it's just about either you need to do some software upgrade, or the software is up to date enough to integrate with our platform, and then you can have it ready, and you can monitor then and have this data integrated into the smart parking platform, either for a certain area or certain district or certain city or certain country. So whatever, if the scale you are going to in your implementation.
Yes, Mr. Zulfiqar.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I agree what Chadi said about that, but I think one thing we need to bear in mind is that these systems, they don't talk to each other. So, we need to make sure that the system integration is a realistic area, because that is where the problem, actually comes through, because, every system is different. Unless you go with the existing system you have, yes, you can easily integrate and you can move forward quickly on that. But if you want to try a different system or looking at different systems, then clearly system integration is a big issue. And that's something you've got to be very, very careful about.
In that point, I not fully agree, because in the past it was very close systems, especially in the parking industry. But now all the manufacturers, even the historical ones with very proprietary systems some years ago, are opening their systems, so having different ways of exchanging data using API or other type of technology. And for us at the beginning, it was hard to do the system integration, but it's being more and more easy and more common, the integration, because at the end, there is no one provider that can answer to all the needs when you have a smart parking project. And at the end, you need to integrate different systems to get the solution running. So we now have integrations with many systems, and I agree with you that it's not a plug and play. There is some work to be done, but it's more and more easy to compared to the past, let's say.
Ultimately, every business is for a business opportunity, clearly, and every system is a better system from their perspective. So practical. I was giving you a practical experience from the client perspective, where we try to look at the bigger picture and say, look, actually this system is okay, but actually if we can use the other one and do it better. And every system technically is integratable, but for business reasons sometimes there are difficulties. But where there's a will, there's a way, and ultimately I'm sure something will happen. I'll give you a classic example. We have these the payment apps. If in one street, technically you could have 2 or 3 different ones, but they don't talk to each other. You got to download one and the other and second and choose which one you want to pay for.
But I have an example.
There's a long way to go for us.
I don't think it's improving because, for example, in Spain, now it's due to some legal decisions, there is the apps market for payment. It's open. Okay. So in every city could be many apps working at the same time. And cities have just to define certain rules that this app have to fulfill. And for example, is payment data should be shared with this central platform, okay? And all the data it's collected in certain points, so it's consistent. You can pay with different apps, and the enforcement is done from one platform. And this is running in Barcelona, it's running in Madrid, it's running in different cities, and with different providers, with different apps, with different platforms. So
going back to Philip's question, you see that if as a resident, how does he understand what smart parking is? I would say smart, but if I go on a street, all these, I just click, I want to pay for it, and I get all these apps basically saying this is what you pay for this one, this is what you pay for that one, and I go for the cheapest one. I don't have but in UK, the government is actually taking some leading role. They're having this data collection arrangement where they will pick up data from different local authorities and they'll share it, and that will help us to come up with systems which are more kind of integrated. But we do need to recognize clearly the businesses are in there for their business interests as well, and we need to support them to deliver their products as well. Thank you.
Actually, I can confirm as well that this is happening in Qatar. The government are talking to each other, government agencies are talking to each other. And I know that the matter of fact, the PPP project by Ajral that Moen talked about, it's gonna be somehow integrated, or at least the data can be integrated with the TASMO program. So we know that government agencies are aware about this, and they are trying to see this smart parking is gonna be introduced to the Qatari market. They are aware and they are properly planning for it to be fully integrated and provide a unified user experience. When I say unified user experience, doesn't mean same technology, but at least same end result, and the city management will be able to aggregate all the data coming from different systems and different projects.
Yes, Chadi. Actually, there are a couple of compatibility issues which I can see with various private partners as well, with various developers, where they want to upgrade or we want to bring in additional features to the parking lot with the basic detection system which they have. Yes, so you guys basically, I think, answered and touched every aspect of it, that on the government level and on a various levels, many systems can really now be integrated in a common thing that they can really talk to each other. But as far as the new features are concerned, that I remember, like there are various developers coming to us, because nowadays this Find My Car thing is going very popular. So many guys, many developers, they just want to upgrade their parking management systems to have this feature, but because they have got the basic detection system of the sensors and things. But then they're like, we normally ask them to go and procure a new, like camera-based detection system where they can have these features and all. So that's what it is.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. We have a guest that before ask a question, then he's retweaking it, like the question itself. His question is related to, I think he already has his own parking management systems. So can he use his own platform to install the parking sensors, or he needs like to rely on another like parking management system?
Well, it depends what system they have, how old it is, does it meet the new standards, does it meet their new requirements. So what they really need to do is do a little brief to say what is it they're trying to achieve in the long run. So need to be a bit more foresighted approach really. And then does the existing system actually meet those requirements? And are there any software upgrades or system upgrades available which will actually deliver those aims and objectives? If they are delivering those objectives, then clearly you can use it. But if they're not, then clearly you need to look alternative. But what do need to bear in mind, the technology has moved on very, very rapidly. So the developments are there. And sometimes some suppliers, for business reasons, commercial reasons, they don't actually upgrade some of the software. Therefore, they may not be the right ones in terms of what you're trying to achieve. But you need to look at what you want to get to really. Yeah.
Actually, if this question is, it can be directed to off-street, which I believe Ali just answered, and if it's related to on-street, then in this case, the sensors by themselves are usually passive sensors. For better, like easier installation and a longer battery lifetime. Okay, in this case, the processing is not being done on the sensor by itself. So that's why the sensors, it's better to be connected to a certain edge computing, which is where the proper analysis of the data coming from the sensor, from the parameters coming from the sensor is done. It's validated and converted into proper readable data related to occupancy, to operational parameters like temperature, battery lifetime, or whatever, and then transmitted to another platform. So we can provide the turnkey job, or we can provide these sensing activities and sensing the hardware and this edge computing and edge processing activities to deliver the information directly to a smart city platforms where can they build their own analytics for like other measures. And at the same time, we can provide certain raw data coming from the platform by itself to other smart city platforms where they can combine different data coming from, let's say, traffic management, coming from, I don't know, maybe crowd management, coming from weather, coming from other maps or other data combined with the smart parking data to provide a higher or a global overview about the city operations, including the smart parking and the parking activities.
Perfect. We know that we are late. We already crossed like 8 minutes, like from the time that we scheduled for the session. But I would like to use just like few minutes to skip on the sensors, because we are receiving a lot of questions related to the sensors itself. So Mr. Chadi, I will be asking you questions, but like let's make it like short answers, like because we have so many, so we can answer all of them.
Rapid fire, yes, no.
So the system of the sensors, is it based on a Wi-Fi? Is it connected to a Wi-Fi so that a city needs to have like a strong Wi-Fi system?
No, I answered this question. Actually, it's not a Wi-Fi, it is wireless, but not Wi-Fi. So either it is a narrowband, it's an IoT network, narrowband or LoRaWAN network, or either it's using our own proprietary gateways to create our own unpatented frequency license network to connect all the sensors together. So it is wireless, but not Wi-Fi. Okay. It can be, for example, in Qatar, in Doha, we have the narrowband IoT deployed all over the Qatar, the territory. So you don't need any investment in infrastructure for the single spot detection sensor. You just need to install the sensors, answer the narrowband IoT SIM card, and having up and running for many years.
Okay. Next question.
Is it
based? The next question is actually, is the sensor in every slot, or is one sensor can manage more than one slot?
Yeah, actually we have two types of sensors. The single spot detection sensor is a sensor by spot. So you need to know the occupancy or activities on this spot specifically. When it comes to flow counting sensor, then we can advise about the occupancy level of a parking zone. It can be 50, 100, or 150, or even 1,000 parking spots. So it's either counting or detection. Detection, single spot, counting can provide for many spots.
Perfect. I'm going to do the last question, and it's an interesting question, that all those sensors are going to be monitored and controlled from one central station for all parkings, or how exactly it works? How will you monitor or control it?
If I was the Qatari government, I would do so, but actually,
you work with them, you have some influence.
Actually, it's a dream for every city manager. You know what I mean? So you wish that you have this platform to. In Qatar, they have a platform to monitor like the camera surveillance, at least for security surveillance cameras from one central location. So we don't know, at least personally, we don't know how the jurisdiction of the parking is going to happen over the parking industry. However, I believe that all the technologies being presented, or at least the technology we are presenting to the Qatari market and to the project and to the government agencies, can be fully integrated and monitored through one single platform, integrating all these parking activities.
Thank you so much, Chadi. We hope we answered all the questions, and some of them we didn't, and we would like to apologize. Some questions were related to the presentation. Do you allow us to share your presentation if someone is requesting it, Mr. Chadi? Perfect.
Sure, with pleasure. I will send you the PDF version, and definitely a pleasure.
Perfect. Also, there are some people requesting some contact details of all of you in general. I hope I will ask you like by email if it's possible, like to share your contact details with them. If you allow me, definitely it's something that we will be doing, and encourage everyone to get your consultancy or your services or your technologies related to the parking itself.
More than happy for you to share, Ahmed.
Yeah, same
Perfect.
here.
Same to me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I don't know if you have any message or something that you would like to say before we close. If you want, you have like not like 20 seconds to use in your advantage, each one of you, to say something.
It was a nice event, but then you organized it quite well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Murray.
Same here.
Thank you everyone for.
Thank you again. It was a great event, well organized, but don't be put off by smart parking. It's an opportunity for you to tackle your challenges. That's what I'll say.
Definitely, we will. Definitely. Thank you so much, all. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any question, you can contact me or contact everyone else. And we look forward, inshallah, to see you soon. Maybe in a physical event, inshallah.
Inshallah, I look forward to that.
Have a nice evening. We will see you.
It's snowing in London, by the way.
Enjoy
Here's
the
sun.
And I hope Philip's meal's been cooked now in the outdoor sun.
He was eating, actually. That was it.
No, it's really done. I know exactly when my app will tell me exactly when it's done.
Absolutely.
Good
to see you all.
Smart barbecue, actually.
Okay. All the best.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.